Good afternoon and welcome to the Rotary Club of Tulsa, club number 2500, District 6110. I would argue this is the most attractive and intelligent club in the entire district. There's something a little bit gratifying about being able to smack a bell with this hammer. I don't know what it is, but it's awesome. Good afternoon. Welcome to the Rotary Club of Tulsa. It's wonderful to come together as Rotarians in service and fellowship. We've got a really good program. We've got another really good program ahead. But first, Rob Gardenhauer will leave us an invocation and pledge, followed by guest introductions from Alan Wayland.
All right, let's take a moment to reflect. Many years ago, a traveler came upon 3 workers laying bricks. Curious, he asked the first, "What are you doing?" The man replied, "I'm laying bricks." He asked the second, who said, "I am building a wall." But the third one looked up and smiled and said, "I am building a cathedral." That third worker saw beyond the task. He saw the purpose. May we be reminded today that our small acts, when done with great purpose, are part of something much bigger than ourselves. Let us be grateful for this opportunity to serve, to lead, and to build our own cathedrals, brick by brick, right here in Tulsa. Amen. And the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good afternoon and welcome again to the Rotary Club of Tulsa. We're glad that you're here. When I call the Rotarian's name and his or her guest, if you would please stand and remain standing and hold your applause until we've introduced everyone. Roger Ramsire has Eric Scott. Scott Philstrip has Judge Greg Frizzell, past member and hopefully future members. Brian Bovard has Amanda Fisher. Brian also has Zoe Hale. Barney James has Brad Chambers, and he has Clark Lineback. I sort of have, you'll get to meet him in a minute, our newest exchange student from the Netherlands, Willem Overmars. And we have 3 visiting Rotarians. The first is Teresa Lewis from Broken Arrow, but she is also the host parent, mother for Willem. Mike Coleman brought a Rotarian from Southside, David Cobb. Hi, David. And Larry Boyer from Southside is also here. Again, welcome to the Rotary Club of Tulsa.
Judge, it's great to have you back here with us. We're thankful you invested your time with our club today. We appreciate you. David Cobb, to see you again for the first time in a long time. You're still associated with Mike Homan. But we don't hold that again. Oh, I've got to do the obligatory so. I want to thank everyone who participated in our 5th Wednesday Service Above Self Day last Wednesday at our Blood Institute. I was there along with a number of you. How many did we have total, Mr. Vogel? Did we have 22 or 25 there? It's pretty 22. It's a pretty good handful of folks at our Blood Institute. We learned quite a bit there too about the way they handled that. They gave me the simple task of rolling t-shirts and gave others the more complex task of stuffing packages for back to school at Broken Arrow. We're grateful for those of you who are willing to invest your time, especially during a busy lunch hour. It makes a difference in our community. Those service opportunities allow us to live out the service above self motto through meaningful hands-on involvement. If you weren't able to join us last week, we're going to have 2 more opportunities this Rotary year. One on October 29th and one on April 29th. And we'll look forward to having you there. Julie Redinger is working with her committees to set those next events up, and you'll see more about those soon. The countdown is on. How many of you knew there was a countdown? The countdown is on to the Golden Circle Gala. Did any of you see a Tulsa People August issue magazine? It's got a full-page ad in there that DJ and Sheree and Tina helped us with, talking about the Golden Circle Gala. And I think we've got a video we're going to drop on that now. These are the entertainers that are going to be at the event. So Sheree, I know there'll be somebody that'll be doing bubbles on drinks. We're going to have somebody on stilts. And we're going to have a bubble man and a magician. The Mirror Man is a human disco ball. You've never seen anything like that, and it'll be a good time. The entertainment at this event is beyond anything else in Tulsa. I hope that you will take your time to join us for the Golden Circle Gala on the 26th of September at Southern Hills. All the proceeds from that go to benefit the Rotary Club of Tulsa Foundation. There are also sponsorship opportunities if you need those. How many of you listened to our music this morning from Mr. Hamill before we started? Did you recognize some of the songs he was playing? Old Man River, Proud Mary, Shall We Gather at the River? Kind of apropos for our speaker, I think. Once again, Mr. Hamill delights and entertains with his music selection. So you know by now I always spend a little time talking about Rotary, DNA. And so Rotary established the International Youth Exchange internationally in 1929. Since then, the Rotary Club of Tulsa has participated by hosting students from around the world and sponsoring local students for life-changing experiences abroad. Rotary Youth Exchange Program empowers young leaders to become ambassadors of peace and social justice in their communities and around the globe, impacting lives long after the exchange ends. At the Rotary International Conference in Calgary this year, they had a couple of those folks that are international ambassadors for Rotary speak. And it's interesting to hear their perspective on world affairs. They've got experience that many of us don't have. This incredible program thrives thanks to the dedication, leadership, and passions of thousands of volunteers in Rotary, both Rotarians and non-Rotarians, who make it possible. And we're going to, before we introduce our Rotary Youth Exchange student, who I had the privilege of greeting with Alan Whalen and his host family at about midnight last Wednesday at the Tulsa International Airport, we're going to have a brief video.
Committed to building community through global awareness and understanding, we challenge teens globally to step outside of their comfort zone and expand their worldview by entering a new one. Hosted by supportive families, young people are given the opportunities to explore new locations, immerse themselves in a different way of life, and create impact in regions far from home, all while forming lasting relationships. And making countless memories. returning home with endless stories to share. Because a moment can be the experience that lasts a lifetime. Rotary Youth Exchange. Find out more at rotary.org/youth exchange.
So one of the challenges of taking a leadership role in this club is finding people who are motivated to fill particular roles. And I am very proud today to introduce you to our Rotary Youth Exchange Chair, Mary Beth Sawyer, who's going to introduce this year's inbound student.
Before I introduce our student, we've already kind of said it today, but it takes a lot of people to facilitate bringing students to new countries and certainly to make them comfortable while they're here. So if you have ever served on this committee, housed a student, whether it was one of our exchange students or it was a student we were only housing for a night or two for a conference, could you please stand? Thank you all for your amazing service and your commitment to our club and to our students. And with that, I would like to introduce our current inbound student, Willem Overmars from the Netherlands.
Thank you. All right. Yeah, so, well, she already kind of told, but yeah, I'm an exchange student from the Netherlands. I kind of got here to experience, well, hopefully one of, if not the best year of my life, to, you know, experience USA culture and experience a bunch of things that you guys do, which also include a bunch of weird things, but yeah. And yes, well, I hope it will be the best year of my life. That's kind of it, yeah. So thank you.
Willem, we're going to, as a symbol of international friendship and Rotary's shared values, we're going to trade banners. There you go. That's perfect. Now what? You're good. So what Willem didn't tell you is he's got two sisters. And he's got his two sisters, right? He's the youngest of the three. And when he arrived in Tulsa on Wednesday evening last week, Alan Whalen was there with us. And Alan said, "You need to text your mom." And Willem said, "She's asleep." And Alan said, No, she's not." And he sent a text. So Willem, we're glad you're here. Thank you for coming. Mary Beth, thank you. We want to thank Willem's host family, Teresa and David Lewis. Teresa, would you please stand up? And thanks to, I'm sorry David is not here with you today to provide adequate supervision, but thanks to Alan Whalen, who's serving as Willem's Rotarian counselor, and the entire Youth Exchange Committee for their ongoing dedication and support. Now, Case Anderson has a side mic announcement.
All right, Case. So I was expecting to get heckled from that table. I guess they decided to be supportive. Good height for the mic. So this is my first side mic, so bear with me here. But I just wanted to kick off with a couple questions. So who loves Rotary? Yeah, if your hand's not up, you're wrong. But who wants to see Rotary grow our impact, grow our club? Okay, so leading question. We are having a recruitment event coming up on August 27th. That's a Wednesday. Courtesy of Seth Disler over there with the Tulsa Drillers, We're going to have a baseball game. We want a good mix of current Rotarians and prospective members. We got 50 tickets to work with. It's quite a bit, but we are already kind of limited on space. So reaching out to you all to bring some folks that you think would be a good fit for our club to grow and grow our impact. Feel free to grab me after the meeting today. But again, August 27th, I'll shoot out emails this afternoon. But August 27th, game starts at 7, buffet included, tickets are included. Should be really fun and a good start to kicking off this new year of growth and recruitment. Thank you.
Case, hang out there for just 1 second. So, Case, Shanna Vollmer's not here today, so I need you to stand in for just a little segment. Would you happen to know if we hit our 10 media post quota for the month of July?
I do not.
You do not? Well, you can go back to your seat now then. I forgot to point out that Mr. Beauvard is wearing the same color garment as Willem. Stand up, Mr. Beauvard, so we can see you, highly visible. Thank you. Our Rotarian of the Day has had a distinguished career in both the legal and energy sectors. Curtis Craig began his 35-year tenure with Explorer Pipeline in 1979, initially serving as an attorney with responsibilities spanning corporate, regulatory, and environmental permitting. In 1982, he accepted a position with the Department of Energy in Tulsa, and he later entered private legal practice for nearly 6 years. He returned to Explorer Pipeline in 1988 as General Counsel, Corporate Secretary. He earned his Bachelor of Science in Business Management from Oklahoma State University, thus the orange again, and his Juris Doctor from the University of Tulsa, my alma mater. Notably, during his time in law school, he actually served as a named plaintiff in the landmark 1976 U.S. Supreme Court case, Craig versus Boren. Curtis and his wife, Carol, have been married for 46 years. Together they have 3 sons, and I will say, Curtis and Carol, I do have a favorite child of yours, and his name is Chaz Craig, our programs chair, Cameron and Colton, and 8 grandchildren. A proud Rotarian since 2005, Curtis has given generously of his time and talent. He and Carol co-chaired the 2012 IBA Awards, which I know is a great challenge and took a lot of work, and is recognized as a Paul Harris Fellow, a Platinum Club Fellow, and a member of the Allen Edwards Society. Please join me in welcoming our Rotarian of the Day.
Thank you, President Carl, for that introduction. Our topic today is the highway of the waterway, the destination, the Tulsa Port. Our speaker will cover, among other things, the port's history, its operations, the amount of barge traffic that goes through the port, the industries that are served, the growth opportunities at the port, and, of course, the economic impact it has on our region. Since 2018, our speaker has led the port's economic development efforts by recruiting new companies and assisting existing businesses at the port to grow. Previously, he served in a similar position as director of the existing business and energy for the Tulsa Regional Chamber of Commerce. Our speaker volunteers with several organizations, including the Tulsa Global Alliance and the Signature Symphony. And he also plays the bass guitar with the jazz swing band, the Zoots. Help me welcome a former member of our club and our speaker, Andrew Ralston.
And I think what he didn't mention in there is I did a little time peddling musical instruments for Bob Sade right out of college when I first moved here. So good to see you, Bob. It's a pleasure to be here with you all. As he said, I was a member for a couple of years while I worked at the Chamber. Moved out to Rogers County, so I don't get downtown much, but it's great to see a lot of familiar faces as well as some new people in the club. Great to see you guys still doing well. As he mentioned, I've been at the Tulsa Ports since 2018. It's a pleasure to work there. It's a unique organization, and I want to tell you a little bit about the small things that we're doing. Next slide. Little context. There's 25,000 miles of navigable water in our country. You can see kind of the different types and what kind of purpose they serve, but mainly I want you to visualize a highway of water with cargo moving on it. So the most efficient way to move cargo. Next slide. Not going to go into the history. My colleague Sheila was originally supposed to present. She is the history buff. She is our historian, so to speak, for the organization. But I want to talk about more the present and the future. But you can't do that without context. And this river system, this navigable river system, would not exist without these gentlemen here. You've probably heard of them. Senator McClellan and Senator Kerr, former Governor Kerr. And the reason that they built this system or got this system built was primarily to protect from flooding. But there's lots of other benefits. Next slide. This is a little map, hard to see, of our system, but there are 18 locks and dams between the Port of Catoosa, which you'll see on this is labeled as the head of navigation, not the end. We don't like to be called the end. And those 18 locks and dams, as you see below there, are an elevator of water. So every time they go into a lock, those barges move up in elevation. So we're moving over 400 feet in elevation from the Mississippi River to the Port of Catoosa. Next slide. All owned, operated, maintained by the Army Corps of Engineers. This system does not exist without federal funding. It is the responsibility of the federal government to make sure that all of the public uses and private uses of this navigation system are intact. And we do a significant amount of advocacy to make sure that the Corps of Engineers is supported in that mission. This is Lock and Dam 18, located just south of our Inola property in Wagner County. You'll see the barges attached to the towboat inside the lock. The red and the gray are the barges, the white is the boat. It is pushing from one elevation into the lock. The lock will close behind it. The boats will raise up as the water level goes up, and they will come out at a new level. All done with fluid mechanics, not a whole bunch of power use going on in this process. Next slide. Here's the other benefits. So yes, flood control, loss of life, loss of property was the primary reason behind designing and funding this endeavor to be built. But all of the other benefits that came along with it were the reason it got done. You have hydropower. There are several locks and dams that have hydropower stations on them, as well as upstream dams for the reservoirs that were created with hydropower, including Keystone. Water supply. There are lots of straws in the navigation system pulling out water for various uses, including water supply to multiple communities. We have recreation. You have the core recreation areas along both the reservoirs as well as the river that you are able to take advantage of as a citizen. And then we have navigation, which is near and dear to my heart particularly. Next slide. I love this quote. We use it when we go to trade shows on our trade show booth. When people who know about the river system walk by and see a trade show booth that says Oklahoma Seacoast, they do a double take. And so that's what we're going for. But President Nixon, whether you like the president or not, the president coming to Catoosa, Oklahoma to dedicate a waterway port in Oklahoma was a big deal. And a lot of people showed up. I think the number I've heard is 20,000 people showed up for this event. So we will forever remember this, and it's an important part of our history. Please go watch the YouTube video of the speech. It's on our website. Next slide. This is our first barge coming in. So once you have federal authorization to build a waterway in a port, and you have federal funding authorization, which is a whole other endeavor, as you might understand, you have to then figure out how you're going to build the infrastructure locally to take advantage of that waterway. And so the partnership between the city of Tulsa and Rogers County to create this port required a $21.2 million general obligation bond to be passed by the voters of both jurisdictions. At the time, Rogers County's ability to fund that was limited to $1.2 million. So Tulsa put in 20. We went to the voters, we said, if you pass this, we will never come to the voters for a tax increase to fund this again, and we have not. So making this thing self-sufficient and revenue positive has always been the mission of the Port Authority so that we don't have to go back to the voters to support this public organization. We opened for business in late 1970, didn't receive our first barge until January 1971, and it was 650 tons of newsprint. Now, we give a lot of presentations to younger audiences. Can you imagine what they think when they're like, what is newsprint? So we have to explain that. Here's who we are. We're the City of Tulsa Rogers County Port Authority. That's a terrible name for marketing, so we don't really use it very often, only in legal documents for the most part. We are a non-appropriated state agency, which doesn't really have a definition. It's just kind of the best way we can describe ourselves. We are really reliant and self-sufficient because we created a model where we lease land and we lease other equipment and operations, as well as charge fees for services. And so 50% of that revenue, used to be more, 50% of that revenue is land leases. So inside the original 2,000 acres of the Port of Catoosa, every company you see there is leasing the land underneath them. They may own the improvements on top, but there's a long-term ground lease on the property. And that's, one, to maintain a semblance of control for the public agency, but also to make sure that we have that continuous revenue over time. The forefathers of the port went to other ports to make sure they knew what they were doing when they were building one in Oklahoma, and most of those ports said, don't sell your land. And so that's one reason this was set up the way that it was. Our governing board is 9 members that are appointed. My board member, Bob Portis, is here today to support, so I appreciate him being here. Bob spent about 40 years working for the Port Authority and did a lot of the things that allows me to be creative and have a launch pad for what we're doing for the future. So we appreciate both his time as an employee and now as a board member. When we have board members appointed, sometimes the appointing authority will ask our opinion and sometimes they won't. The Rogers County Commissioners came to us and said, you know, I've got Bob Portis. If you can think of someone better, I'll appoint that person. And we said, well, why would we do that? We can't think of anybody better. The 6 members from the city of Tulsa are appointed by the mayor with approval from the city council. And then we have those 3 members from Rogers County that are appointed by the Rogers County Commission. So really kind of splits that jurisdiction, gives some balance to both the urban and rural interests, and really just gives us a lot of freedom to operate and do what we do. Next slide. Port of Catoosa, this is as of this last quarter's employment survey of our existing companies. There's about 3,500 people working at the Port of Catoosa. We have approximately 60 companies. It used to be closer to 70, but we've had a lot of consolidation of companies taking existing buildings and growing into them. 2 million tons of barge freight is our average per year. That varies widely depending on the year and crops and things like that, but 2 million is our average. 10,500 rail cars average per year, and that's only going to increase. I'll talk about that later. But 90% of that is agriculture, whether it be grain, including wheat and soybean or soybean meal, or fertilizer. We see a lot of dry and liquid fertilizer. Next slide. This is how we make it work. Barge, rail, and truck all working together so that you can move between modes. It's the greatest benefit of us being established in Oklahoma, because otherwise you wouldn't have a lot of these commodities moving through the state or out of the state. Next slide. Actually, go back one. Quick note. If you look at that bottom right-hand corner, I wanted to show you the difference between a towboat and a tugboat. It's a very important distinction. A towboat has a flat front, you lash barges to it, and it pushes the barges. A tugboat has a pointed bow and is usually used to either pull cargo or to help navigate cargo that's being pushed. So, important distinction, towboat versus tugboat. Next slide. This is why you ship by barge. You can see it might be a little more efficient than the other modes. To put it in perspective, 60 trucks for one barge. So if you see there, you can kind of see 3 barges in a row stacked next to each other. A tow of barges, which is a full collection of barges on our system, is 12. So every tow of barges, which has one boat, that boat has 3 diesel engines, is replacing 720 diesel engines and 720 drivers of trucks per shipment. So the scale is really how our efficiency and cost works to make it a benefit to shippers. Next slide. Some of the things that we ship primarily, I mentioned dry fertilizer, wheat and soybean, and liquid fertilizer. Like I said, that's 90% of our tonnage. And not to be overlooked, we have steel as well. Steel is coming in domestically, primarily from Arkansas and Pennsylvania. You'll see hot rolled steel from eastern Arkansas. You'll see cold rolled steel from Pennsylvania. To this day, if you look at Whirlpool in Tulsa County, one of our largest manufacturing employers, they likely would not be here if they weren't able to get their steel via the waterway. So that's over 2,000 jobs that may not be in Tulsa because the waterway wasn't here. Also, project cargo, oversized, over-dimensional, anything you don't want to go on the road, which is most of these products, you can ship by water and then just a little bit by road. That's always the goal, is to use as little truck transportation for large volume products as possible. So as you see those metal fabricated things going through your main street and light poles being moved and traffic being stopped, the goal is to have as little of that happen across the country as possible. So our ability to both use our crane as well as our low water wharf to bring those products in is a significant benefit to metal fabricators. Next slide. Here's our main dock, and here's one of those items you wouldn't want moving through your main street. I believe this was produced by Exterran, a refinery component that was fabricated in Oklahoma, but is leaving Oklahoma to go to points unknown, far away, and the ability for companies here to win these contracts usually relies on their ability to get transportation at an efficient cost. And so that's the significant benefit of that 200-ton crane, able to lift these large components into barges and avoid road traffic. Next slide. A little bit about impact. Waterways Foundation did this study in 2024, I believe, but they used 21 data. There was significant flooding on 2019 on the waterway. 21 was what we consider to be kind of our first standard year after that flooding occurred. And so just a couple points to note. This is just the Oklahoma piece of the river, not the Arkansas piece. Over 78,000 direct jobs supported and indirect jobs supported by waterway transportation. That means they touch something that relates to the waterway. And then 6.6 billion in gross state product. Every piece of that impact is touched by the waterways in Oklahoma. So that is currently 2 public ports and lots of private terminals. Next slide. Foreign trade zone, a lot of talk about that recently. Tariffs tend to spark a lot of conversation around trying to avoid tariffs. And foreign trade zone is one way to do that. An FTZ allows you to bring a foreign product into the zone, whether that be a warehouse or a location of some sort, pause the tariff or the duty on the product, and then when it leaves, that's when the duty becomes active. So in some cases, you can actually manufacture a product inside of a foreign trade zone, and it will be a different duty when it leaves. So say you bring steel in and a piece of machinery leaves, that's a different tariff or duty. So foreign trade zones can be a significant benefit, and inland foreign trade zones have been significantly underutilized in the past because we don't ship a lot of international freight, finished product in and out of the center of the country. We ship bulk freight that's usually going to somewhere else before it gets shipped internationally. But recently, because of all the tariff discussion, there's been a lot of interest in foreign trade zones. We had a little bit of growth happen at the end of 2019. Public Service Company of Oklahoma has always been a partner for us in industrial projects and making sure we have the electricity we need to serve them. But when I worked for the chamber, I had the honor of working with PSO to recruit the company Sofidel that you see there in the background, an Italian paper company. Right now they employ about 550 people during about 1.8 million square feet of manufacturing space. That was kind of the first effort for PSO to recruit an industrial company to the property formerly known as Black Fox, which was the nuclear project that was canceled in the 80s. And so after they did that, they realized, well, we don't want to be an industrial developer. We want to be a power company. And they said, we want to make sure that the property goes to an entity that has the public interest in mind for economic development, ultimate growth for the region, and that maybe knows something about the rail and the barge opportunities that are there. And so we raised our hands and said, please pick us. They transferred this property to us with consideration that we would master plan it, that we would serve Sofidel with rail infrastructure, and that we would recruit large-scale companies that are large job creators and power users. Those are kind of the three stipulations. And we'll talk a little more about how we did that. Next slide. When we acquired more property, the entity formerly known as City of Tulsa Rogers County Port Authority, or Tulsa Port of Catoosa, as some of you may know it, needed a little refresh on our branding. If you've ever rebranded a 50-year-old organization by committee, I would not recommend it. However, we got through it. Our friends at Resolute PR, who we've been working with for a long time, led us through the process very patiently. About 6 months, we thought to ourselves at the beginning, we should be Tulsa Ports, 2 port locations with a Tulsa Port of Inola location and a Tulsa Port of Catoosa location. And then we went around the world and back and decided on the same conclusion. So it's well vetted and well received at this point. So now we are Tulsa Ports with 2 different locations. Next slide. Little geographic reference of where we are. You're sitting there in downtown Tulsa where the purple point is, and the 2 blue polygons are our property at Catoosa and Inola. Both encompass about 2,500 acres, give or take. And you'll see that 412 cuts right between them, or as we like to call it, Interstate 42, because it is now a future designated interstate that will connect I-35 to I-49 in Arkansas. So those improvements are starting this year, especially in the Inola and Catoosa locations. You're seeing some work in Catoosa right now. We said we'd master plan the property for development. Master planning industrial sites, as my Terracon friends know, it's not an easy process because the first thing that happens after you finish the plan is it's time to change it. So we started with a blank slate. We went to some conceptual. We said, well, we could put some buildings here and here and here. Here's the floodplain. Here's where utilities will go. And then, one project came and then another one came looking at how they would cut it up. And we started building infrastructure to support future industrial development. And we're like, okay, that won't work. So we started penciling in different roads and different utility corridors. And the one on the right is the closest to where it's been so far, but it's already changing. So we definitely have gone through the master planning process. Next slide. A few successes from 2024. We survey our companies every quarter to make sure we know what the job creation looks like and how they're doing from a health standpoint. 3,600 jobs was the total in 2024. We opened the Verdigris Southern Railroad, which I'll talk a little bit more about. We have construction underway for a wastewater plant at Inola that we've been planning for 6 years. And we, with the help of the legislature and the Port of Muskogee, created the Oklahoma Port Infrastructure Revolving Fund at the state level. This is the first direct investment by the state into our public ports in Oklahoma. So a big deal, and could not have done this without the legislature's support. Next slide. So this started as just a rail project that was about $12 million. We had lots of partners involved, as you see there, with cost overruns and COVID and all kinds of things that happened. Became a $20 million project. Could not have done it without every single one of the entities you see listed here. The Maritime Administration gave us a $6 million grant. Department of Commerce helped us with a pooled finance application. Department of Transportation gave us some money for crossings. I mean, the list goes on. Everybody contributed directly to this project. And little did we know, to get this done and moving, we'd have to become a railroad. You wouldn't think that taking existing rail infrastructure and connecting it to existing rail infrastructure, you'd have to become a railroad, but unfortunately you do. And that's because Class I railroads have a say in how you connect to their infrastructure. So we became the Verdigris Southern Railroad, and that is operated by Watco companies. We got a neat little logo and all kinds of merchandise with the name on it. And then we drove a rail engine through a ribbon, which was also a fun thing to get past the safety people. They didn't necessarily like that, but we got it done. Next slide. Tulsa Port of Inola Wastewater Treatment Facility. Like I said, this is 6 years in the making. We're under construction right now. When we first started looking at a wastewater treatment plant at the Port of Inola, it was independent, it was smaller, it was probably closer to $30–40 million. But by the time we saw the scale of industry that was coming and interested in this site, and the scale of what the town of Inola needed in their wastewater improvement, we sought both federal and state and local funds to make this happen. The county supported us in engineering and permitting dollars. The U.S. Economic Development Administration, through the Build Back Better program, supported us with a $23.2 million grant that was related to a lot of the advanced aerial mobility things that are going on in Tulsa. And then the town, as well as us, received some ARPA funding to help plan this endeavor, because it is truly replacing and growing the ability for the town to treat wastewater and the future growth. Next slide. Oh, go back. I did want to comment on, you don't see beauty shots of a wastewater treatment plant very often. I just figured that you guys might want to see that. These are renderings of what it will look like. I know it's beautiful, but I'm sure you'll be interested to see that later. Next slide. 2025 so far, 350 new jobs have been added by existing companies. The primary driver behind that is the heat exchange cooling industry, and that is related to both the petrochemical side, but also very much the data center boom right now. You're seeing a lot of companies move into more of the data center cooling space, and that is driving significant job growth for our existing, I don't know if, I'm sure some of you are aware of this, we use indicators called location quotients to measure our viability for industries, and that is the percentage of an industry's existence according to the national average. So a location quotient of 1 means you have 100% of the national average of a certain industry. We have a location quotient of 42 for heat exchange industry. So we are informally the heat exchange capital of the world. And so a lot of that growth is happening now because of the data center boom. We started a unit train project at Catoosa. Talk a little bit more about that. And then we had a major industry announcement that you might have seen. Next slide. So Port of Catoosa has always had a lot of versatility in the things that we can ship, but it's not completely the type of port that people think that it is. A lot of people think port and they see shipping containers stacked up at the coast with cranes moving them onto large Panamax vessels. Well, we're of course a commodities port. We don't see a lot of that because we're not a deep water harbor. But one thing that have been very interested in for decades is moving intermodal containers. And there's been several runs at that, several attempts to put them on barge, things like that. Our new focus is driving it from the rail side. And the first thing that you have to build to land trains of containers is what they call unit train infrastructure. It means you can land bigger, longer trains, all of one product, all at the same time. And so this endeavor was supported through some funding called PREP that the state put into law for rural development and infrastructure development, as well as some funding through pooled finance through Commerce. This is ultimately going to be about a $37.5 million project for the first phase. And then eventually the next phase is to move into more infrastructure for intermodal container movement. So as we develop more industries that are building and shipping finished products, consumer products, that way we're moving away from the commodities and more into the finished products, so we have a little balance of both. Next slide. Little tiny announcement. Props to Mike Decker, who covered this in the paper. A little fine print there with Mike Decker's name on it. Emirates Global Aluminum, we started working on this project really in 2023. And these type of projects come in lots of different doors, but one that we see a lot is through site location consultants that work for companies to find the best possible site for the right kind of development. And the process to get through this, we competed with 39 different states and Canadian provinces over the course of 2 years. And the ability to say, we can deliver the infrastructure, we can deliver the workforce, we can deliver the transportation opportunity, we can deliver the incentives, all those things that come into an economic development project, we were able to achieve with the help of many, many different partners, particularly the town of Inola, as well as the state legislature for supporting us in this endeavor. Next slide. A little bit about the project. Primary aluminum production. So there are two types of aluminum production. There is recycled, which is secondary. So they take existing aluminum, they melt it down, and then they form it into a new product. Primary aluminum is taking the raw alumina, which is like a white powder, and then turning it into aluminum. And so it is primary because it's coming from the raw product. And then that product is shipped out to lots of different processing opportunities. So when I say significant industry multiplier, that's industry speak for it's going to create a lot more jobs than what you see listed in their direct employment, because there will be customers of theirs that want to locate close by. And we're already talking to some of those customers that want to be close by since the announcement, as you might imagine. It became very active after that. $4 billion in total direct investment. That's everything involved in making sure the plant goes from ground to fully producing. 1,000 direct jobs. Those will be an array of different types of positions, from plant manager all the way down to production labor, HR, accounting, engineering, all kinds of different positions. And then this is the big one for us. I mentioned the average tonnage that we ship today from Catoosa is 2 million tons. We're increasing our tonnage very significantly. And one thing that does for us as an organization and for the waterway is it ensures that the federal government sees the value in maintaining and funding the waterway so that the Corps of Engineers can get the funding they need to keep it moving. And so high value products, high traffic rivers are the ones that get the focus when it comes to federal funding. And so recruiting new companies to this is not only a benefit for the region and the state, it's a benefit for the waterway as a whole, from Oklahoma down to Arkansas, and all the farmers in Kansas, Nebraska, South Dakota, all those different people that are dependent on the waterway to take their product to market. So the tangential impact, I think, is very difficult to measure, but it is vast. Next slide. Here's my contact info. I give my phone and email out like candy. I'm happy to give anybody that wants to talk about future development or get a tour. We give lots of tours at the port and are happy to show you around. But I will take a couple questions if we have time. Yeah. Karen.
What are some of the maintenance? What are some of the maintenance issues
Yeah.
that are ongoing and the type of funds that you're looking for?
Well, the queen of the levees has asked a great question. The federal funding related to waterways in our country is, like I said, crucial. On the navigation part, we are mostly worried about the navigation locks and dams and their maintenance, as well as replacement as they reach their useful life. I think the last number I heard since we got the funding 2 years ago was probably around 219 million is what we're currently looking for. And then the other piece of that is dredging. Water moves through a river, and so does sand and dirt, and it creates all kinds of issues for barges moving through the waterway. And so making sure we have money to not only dredge to a 9-foot depth, which is our authorized depth, but also to dredge further so that we can bring heavier, larger loads on the river in the future. So a lot of opportunities there. One reason that we are still going after a lot of maintenance funding, even though we got quite a bit a few years ago, is because we had to direct a lot of that funding to overruns on the cost of a project called Three Rivers. Three Rivers is where the Mississippi, the White, and the Arkansas River meet at the mouth of the Mississippi. And that if that goes down for any reason, from an infrastructure perspective, the whole river shuts down. And so that is the most important project to complete and make sure it's good for the long term before we start funding the other things.
What will the Tulsa Ports look like in 20 years?
Oh, well, I think we originally thought that Inola was going to be a 15 to 20-year process to really develop it. It's quickly becoming much faster than that. I would love to see us grow even further from a development and company standpoint over the next 5 to 10 years, really. As we look at other opportunities, it's whether we grow geographically or whether we grow from a density standpoint and a shipping production standpoint. But I think that intermodal piece that I showed you, that's going to be huge for us as far as shipping, and will help other companies in the region grow because they have that opportunity. Yes, sir.
What's the impact that some of the recent tariffs are having on the port? It sounds like you do a lot of product going out. Are you seeing a lot of product coming in, and what changes are you going to see?
It's fun to watch, let me tell you. I think from my window, I could almost be a commodities trader because you can see what's piling up and what's going down and what's moving through. I would say that one impact that we've seen is steel companies that are overstocking. Because if you look at all the steel processors in the port and the barge traffic on steel, you'll see it really piled up. But we thought after that kind of levelized out that we'd see a dip in shipping, and that has not happened. So it means there's still a lot of manufacturing activity driving the steel. So it's an interesting dynamic. And then also, it depends on the country at the time, because depending on where our wheat and soybean is being purchased at the time, it may be a country that has already negotiated a deal or a country that is having new tariffs put on them. So the uncertainty, I think, is the main issue for us. But as that levelizes out, we're hopeful we can get some consistency. I know it's going to be at least 600 to 800 megawatts, but they're still designing the ultimate facility, and they're looking at the technology that they're going to put into the facility, and that will change the power demands depending on what their final decision is. But it's going to be significant either way.
So how does PSO plan for that?
So PSO can't speak for them, but what I know of their process is they go out to RFP for all kinds of generation options, whether that be renewables, natural gas, hydro, whatever it may be at the time. They request generation development opportunities, and as the load comes on and gets signed on, they plan on how to implement those over time. And so the question is not whether the power can be available or provided, it's how quickly the power can be available and provided. Yeah. So that also means bringing a whole lot more power in also. Yeah, data centers, AI data centers and standard cloud computing data centers, crypto. You're seeing a lot of different operations that are proliferating right now. And we actually, from an industrial standpoint, are watching if data operations are taking up all the power, how are we taking large manufacturers and job creators to make sure that they still have the ability to locate here. So that's where we're focused on kind of policy and making sure that manufacturers are not left out. One more in the back. Right now, we're about half and half because you have liquid fertilizer and grain going out, dry fertilizer and steel coming in. Probably more export right now, but close to half and half.
Thank you, Andrew.
Thank you all.
Mr. Portis, I'm so glad you could join us today. You toured my Leadership Tulsa class in